Hey guys. Okay, you guys are just getting all the nighttime videos. And I just filmed my December wrap up and it was like 22 minutes long, so I was like, no. I want to get this down to like between 10 and 15 minutes at the most, so I'm gonna try not to ramble. I read a lot, but I read a lot of little bits of things rather than completing a lot of things. I read two complete novels. I listened to like 90% of a novel, that I still, not 90%, like I think I'm at like the 80% mark. Like I still have like 2 hours to go on the audiobook. And I read a lot of a classic, and I read a graphic novel and a few children's stories. So, yeah, let's get started. Okay, so, and these are probably not in the order that I actually read them in because I don't remember that. But anyway, I read A Christmas Carol by Dickens. This is the first time I've made it all the way through this, and I completely loved it. I knew that I was going to love it because I love a lot of the different adaptations of the film that I've seen, so I know that I've always loved the story. It just depends on the adaptation that I'm seeing as to whether or not I like that adaptation. And I loved the book so much. I love his writing. I love his descriptions. I love the characters. My favorite of the ghosts is definitely the Ghost of Christmas Present. And it was the same in the book as it has been for me in the adaptations, where he was still my favorite. And those are also my favorite scenes as well. And I love so many of the different characters. I love the entire Cratchit family. I love Fred. I find Scrooge very interesting. Yeah, so I love it. And I listened to the Jim Dale narration on YouTube, and it was fantastic. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And I really like a lot of these illustrations by Arthur Rackham, but the only illustration that I really don't like is this one that's actually on the cover. This is Scrooge with the Ghost of Christmas Future, and he's drawn him like a devil figure, which is fine. But the thing is, I've always seen how he's always portrayed in the films, and how I've always pictured him, the Ghost of Christmas Future, is as kind of the Grim Reaper, Death, basically. And I've never thought of Death as the devil. Like, I've never thought of those two being one and the same, ever. I've always thought that Death was kind of just the, like, Grim Reaper. It's just his job. It's not like he's actually bad or anything. I mean, everybody fears the Grim Reaper because everybody fears death. But, yeah, I've never associated the Grim Reaper with the devil. So that's why I was kind of really upset that Arthur Rackham illustrated the Ghost of Christmas Future as the devil. But hey, if that's how he saw him, fine. That's just not how I did. But other illustrations that I love are like this one on the back here. I think that's after Scrooge is good, I think. So, yeah. And I love Jim Dale's narration because I kept thinking of Harry Potter and his narration of that, because a lot of those parts seem quite similar. So, yes, this was amazing, and I am mad at myself that it took me so long to actually read it. And it's fantastic, and I'll probably reread it as often as I can, or every Christmas if I can, basically. Next up, I don't know if I read any of this in December or not, but I just decided to include it in here just in case. I'm not finished with it. I'm going to finish it this month. It should only take me about a day to finish because there's only 100 pages left in it. This is The Moorland Cottage by Elizabeth Gaskell, by the way. So, yeah. Hopefully I will love that. I started Bridget Jones's Diary, and I got about 160 pages into it, and it's only about 250 pages. So I read the majority of it, but I put it down when I had to start doing all this house cleaning, and I was just listening to audiobooks. And then when I picked it back up again, I realized that somehow that break was bad for me for reading this book, because I came back to it and suddenly the format was bothering me a lot. Normally I love diary diary books, or books written in diary form, or books written in letter form. However, the thing about Bridget Jones's Diary is that she always writes in like half sentences and doesn't use pronouns, and for some reason, for the first 160 pages, this did not bother me. But then as soon as I took this break and picked it back up, it started bothering me a lot. And I think it's because, to me, it makes Bridget seem dumb when I've never thought of her as dumb, and I don't think that was what Helen Fielding meant to do. And I don't think that's how a lot of other people read it, because I know a lot of other people who read it love the book so much. I've never thought of Bridget as like a genius or anything, but I've never thought of her as being a dumb character. And somehow the fact that she always uses half sentences and never uses pronouns makes it seem dumb. And I know that, or makes her seem dumb. And I know that since it's a diary, a lot of people do probably use shorter sentences in diaries, but I, for one, like, I've never kept a diary full-time or anything, but whenever I have done diary entries, I've never not used pronouns. For example, she says, like, oh, went to bar with so-and-so, instead of tonight I went to the bar with my friends, or something like that. And it's like every single sentence is like that. So it just, I don't know, it started to bother me, so I had to set it aside. I am going to pick it back up at some point and try to finish it, because I love the film, so I really want to give the book a fair shot. But, yeah, so, I don't know. And I mean, so far I'm loving the story, it's just the writing that's kind of really bothering me. No offense to Helen Fielding or anything. And what else? I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I found the audiobook on Audible. There's several different versions, I think, but this one was narrated by Dan Stevens, who plays Matthew Crawley in Downton Abbey. So of course I immediately jumped on that. I was like, oh my gosh, I need that. And it was fantastic. I really loved I've always loved Agatha Christie's writing, since I started reading her books. Always. I've only read them for like a year, but I love her writing as usual. The characters were all incredibly interesting. There were some of them that were flat out completely dislikable. For me, one of them was Emily Brent. But there are other characters who, none of the characters are characters that you're necessarily rooting for, but they all seemed to have, like, one good trait and then one flaw, or, like, you know, 2 and 2, or, you know, they all seemed incredibly balanced as far as, not balanced, but just like, okay, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically, it was very interesting looking at their moral systems, because each character in this book is accused of murder, so it was just really interesting. And I said that there weren't any characters that were totally likable, but that's not true. I actually did like the character Ethel Rogers, because I basically thought that she was one of the few victims in this story who is innocent. But anyway, and what else? Yeah, so I really liked all the characters. I love the plot twist. The plot twist in this is just, whoa. Blew my mind. Really, really liked it. And all the characters were just wonderful. And the reason why I read it is because BBC was adapting a new version of it that came out on the 27th of December. And I was originally going to wait until it came out over here, because Lifetime is picking it up, and I think it's coming out in, like, March or something, but I couldn't wait. So I watched it online. I found it online somewhere, and watched all 3 episodes, and it was so good. It has an amazing cast. I'm not gonna lie, the reason why I started watching it is because I found out, or the reason why I was going to watch it is because I found out Aidan Turner was in it, and that's the reason I read the book. And it was really kind of awkward because reading the book, I was like, oh man, I don't like his character, because he played Philip Lombard, and I really didn't like Philip Lombard. But it was really interesting that I love the actor so much and didn't like his character. I mean, there were parts about his character that I thought were interesting. And yeah, it also has Douglas Booth and Toby Stephens and Anna Maxwell Martin, who's one of my favorites, and Charles Dance, who was unbelievable. And I think his character was my favorite because his character was the most interesting, and basically that man has never messed up a role that I've seen in anything. I've never not liked his acting. Even if I disliked his character, I've always thought his acting was brilliant. So yeah, it was fantastic, and it was the first English adaptation that actually adapted the original ending of the book rather than the ending of the play, which I found very interesting. So yeah, the adaptation, wonderful. The book, fantastic. I realize I haven't really done any star ratings in this video, but I don't know, I haven't actually thought about it. So what else did I read? I read Iron Man Extremis, which is a graphic novel. It's the first Iron Man graphic novel that I've read, and I loved it. I loved the story, and the art was fantastic. It was done by Adi Granov, and it's like a painting style, which is kind of my favorite, I think, and those are just the kind that I just love, where each panel looks like a painting rather than just an illustration. And the story was great. The only thing that I found weird is Pepper wasn't in it, Pepper Potts. Instead, he had a secretary called Mrs. Rennie, which I thought was weird. And like, I asked my friend Ben, because he's the one who lent it to me, and he said, yeah, I have no idea why Mrs. Rennie isn't in it. And then, also, this was just kind of a movie versus comic clash, but in the films, everyone knows who Tony Stark is, or that Tony Stark is Iron Man, starting at the end of the films. But in the comics, apparently, at least in this one, Tony only reveals that he's Iron Man to certain people, and everyone else doesn't know that he is Iron Man. Which made one scene incredibly funny, but I don't have time to talk about that. But anyway, yeah, so loved it, thought it was amazing. And what else? I read Molly's Surprise, which is an American Girl Christmas story that I try to read those every year, and I just read the one this year, which was weird, but I really liked it. And because I love it every time, and I made it 228 pages more into, or 38 pages more into Tenet of Wildfell Hall. Oh, actually, I didn't start this in November. I did start this in December. I read 338 pages of Tenet of Wildfell Hall. So I have a little less than 200 pages to go, and I am completely loving this book, and I love the audiobook that I'm listening to. I'm listening to one that's narrated by Alex Jennings and Jenny Gutter, who are both actors, and it's fantastic, and it's right up there with Jane Eyre for me, and it may even surpass it by the time I finish reading it. And then, what else? I listened to most of Brooklyn, by Colm Tobin, and I'm hoping to finish, I have like 2 or 2.5 hours left of that, and I'm hoping to finish that pretty soon. I'm really loving that. There's some parts in it that are kind of hard to read, because there's some gritty parts in there and some kind of brutally honest parts, but I love his writing and I love the story, and I'm very excited to see the film when I finish listening to the audio. And it's great because it's actually narrated by Niamh Cusack, who is Irish, and she plays Beatrix Potter in the cartoon version of World of Peter Rabbit and Friends. So yeah, loving that. And then the last thing I want to talk about that was really bizarre that I read was I read a little Charles Dickens children's short story called Magic Fishbone, and it was very good. It was a great, there was a great message in it, and it was a very kind of cute, sweet children's story, but there were some really bizarre things in it. First off, the king and queen had 19 children in a period of 7 years. I had to stop reading and calculate this. They would have had to have like 8 sets of twins, or like, 5 sets of triplets, or just so many different, several sets of multiples in order for that to actually have happened. And also the oldest daughter, who basically is the center of the story, basically. A lot of grown-up things happen to her, and she's only 7. So that was also kind of weird to me. Like, I was like, not only would none of this happen in real life, it's kind of very bizarre to me that someone would even write about it happening in fiction. So that just seemed kind of bizarre and out of place at times. But I did, as I said, I did really like the story. I liked the characters. It was very sweet and had a great message. And basically what the story is it's about this girl who is given a magic fishbone, or no, the king is given a magic fishbone by this magical woman who requests that the king give it to his daughter. And she says it will grant her one wish, but she has to wish for this at the exact right time, and you have to tell her that when you give it to her. So he does. He gives it to her, and he says, use this at the right time. And it turns out that the mother is incredibly sick, and that the kingdom is out of money. And so while the mother is sick, this oldest daughter, who is 7, has to take care of all of her younger 18 brothers and sisters, plus her father, by herself. And it just shows like her incredible resourcefulness, because she doesn't end up using the fishbone till the end of the story. And every night her father comes to her and says, like, why haven't you used the fishbone yet? And she's like, oh, it's not time yet. Or, I'm not in such dire need that I need to use it. And so it's so great that this kid already knows, like, from the second she gets the fishbone, that she is not going to need it for a while, because she knows her own inner strength, and I thought that was really cool. And she knows exactly how much she can handle, and the things that she can change and the things that she can't. But yeah, it was really good, but just incredibly bizarre. Okay, so that's the end. It still is longer than I wanted it to be, this wrap-up, but it's because I actually read a lot of things that I just really wanted to talk about. But at least it's shorter than 22 minutes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of any of the things I've talked about. And I will also be recording a few more videos that I'll be putting up. So yeah, let me know what you guys read in December, what you think of all these. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.